Hello, and thank you for joining us for the Pharmacy Cannabis Lecture Series. Each session is designed to deliver a small and in-depth dose of cannabis education. I'm Candace Hawes, and I want to thank all of our viewers from the Pharmacy Santa Ana, Santa Barbara, Berkeley, and the Pottery for joining us today. In honor of Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we're honored to host Dr. Dung Trinh for an overview of research being conducted on cannabis and cancer, followed by a brief discussion of lifestyle choices to reduce your risk. Dung Trinh, MD, is a Chief Medical Officer of Irvine Clinical Research, a medical missionary with TongueOut Medical Missions, and holds leader positions with multiple health organizations in Orange County. He's a keynote speaker, a best-selling author, host of Health Talks with Dr. Trinh, which can be heard on weekly OC Talk Radio. I've had an opportunity to work with Dr. Trinh on the board of the Physicians CBD Council. He's one of the most amazing, thoughtful, caring, and dynamic individuals that I've ever met, and so I'm really honored to have him with us today. I'm excited to have Dr. Trinh with us. He's going to talk about cannabis and cancer, and I'd like to turn it over to him.
All right. Thanks so much, Candace, for that too nice intro. I'll pay you later for it.
It's all so true.
Yeah, right. Hey, everyone. I think we're on this chat. There's a chat box that says public. Feel free to put in your questions as I'm talking, and we can be interactive so that it's not like a one-way lecture. Feel free to comment, chat in our little public chat box here. So if you know how to do the chat thing, type in yes. I want to make sure that you all know how to work the chat box here. That way I know you can ask questions and stuff. Right. So it's under the public section, right? Okay, I see. All right, cool. I see you guys. Rachel, Monica, Andrew, Manuel, Deidre. Okay, very awesome. And if you've ever been to one of my talks, it's never a real lecture. It's more of a one-way discussion, just kind of guided. But today I got some slides for you, which is kind of not normal for my lectures. We normally don't have a lot of slides. I just usually do a lot of talking, but I do want to show you some data and information that's been published specific to CBD and to cannabis and all that. I'm curious, how many of us here have either personally or have known someone who's gone through cancer? Type in yes or no. Type in yes or no. Is this something that has affected you guys in your lives, your families, your friends, or is it more of a theoretical thing that you want to come and learn? All right. Wow. Okay. That's almost as many yeses as when I asked about Alzheimer's and how many folks have been affected by it. So, okay, got it. I want to give you an overview today of why cannabis may play a role in cancer. We know already that actually there are a few FDA-approved medications specifically for cancer. There are medications to help with like appetite. There's medications, I think, for nausea and different things of that sort that's already out there that are cannabis-based. So the FDA have already concurred that cannabis does help with specific symptoms that are related to cancer. Okay, so it's not like this is still kind of experimental. We got products out there, FDA approved, that are cannabis based for the treatment of the symptoms of cancer. What I want to talk to you about today is, what about the treatment of cancer itself? Wouldn't that be interesting? What about the treatment of cancer itself? Not just the symptoms, but the cancer. And And for you to understand the concept behind the studies that are being published in the last few days, what you need to really understand is understand first the endocannabinoid system and how that system, when it's optimized, when it's stimulated, may play a role in addressing cancer. Now, I'm curious. Type in yes or no if you've ever heard of the endocannabinoid system. Type in yes or no. Curious if you guys have heard about it before or not. Ooh, what's this full view here? I'm gonna click on. Oh, wow. Okay. Let me go back to. Cool. All right. Rachel. Yes, 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 yes. All right. You guys are like well informed, most of you. Well informed. Tell me, what does the endocannabinoid system do, guys? Type in the chat box. What does the endocannabinoid system do? Why is it there? Is it there so you can get high? Is it there for the weed? Why is it there? Any thoughts on that? Why does this system exist in the first place? Obviously, it probably doesn't exist just for the plant, right? It's in our body already, this system. And this system was actually discovered, I think, late 80s, early 90s was when it was discovered by Israeli scientists who were studying the plant, right? And what they did was they took apart the components of the marijuana plant and they studied each component. And by study, what I mean was they isolate the components, right? They would isolate the THC, they'll isolate the CBD, CBN, CBG, and they would have folks, take the isolates and try to track and see where did the components of the plant end up in your body, right? Did it end up in your brain, your heart, your liver, right? Your immune system. And by being able to track the components of the plant and the receptors where these components either bound to or indirectly stimulate, right? Did you know that CBD actually doesn't bind with the receptors of the endocannabinoid system? Right? It's not a direct bind to receptors compared to like THC, but CBD indirectly, right? Indirectly influences the endocannabinoid system and stimulates and things of that sort. And so the Israeli scientists were able to map out the entire endocannabinoid system by following and tracing where it ended up in our body. And by mapping it out, they discovered the endocannabinoid system that was already there for as long as your cardiac system's been there and your lung system's been there and every system in your body, right, has been there. The endocannabinoid system has been there all along. It's just that we have just recently discovered it back, early 1990s, late 1980s. And the question is, what does the system do? And you guys have some pretty cool answers here. Let me see. Maintain balance, hemostasis or homeostasis, helps regulate balance in other systems in your body, modulates homeostasis. Dude, you guys are well informed. Helps regulate other system, strengthening the immune system. Oh man, we got a scientist here. Fat-based retrograde neurotransmitters that binds to CB receptors. Holy moly. You're like in the field or something. That's pretty cool. That's way too many SAT words for me, actually. But that's pretty cool. This says CBD non-binding to receptors causes the FAAH effect. Type out what that means. FAAH effect for the rest of us here. And so you guys are absolutely right. Homeostasis, right? Homeostasis is just a medical word for balance. And if I am able to give you an example of homeostasis, do you guys remember the Chinese yin and yang symbol? You know that round circle that has a squiggly line in the middle, and one side's white, the other side's black. And so in Oriental medicine, right, in Asian medicine, when we evaluate folks for diseases and illness and things of that sort, we follow the concept of balance. Anytime your body is out of balance, you get into trouble with your health. It could be mental health, it could be physical health, could be emotional health. So anytime that yin and yang, right, is out of balance, you get into trouble with your body and your system. And that's the way we look at medicine and diseases from an Asian medicine, Oriental medicine perspective. Now, the endocannabinoid system is basically the yin and yang of your body, right? It's the yin and yang of your body. The role and purpose is to look around in your body, to look at all your systems and make sure that things are in balance. And anytime something's out of balance, the role of the endocannabinoid system is simply to kick in, to activate, and bring it back into balance. Does that make sense to you guys so far? Type in yes if that makes sense. I want to make sure I'm not losing anyone in this story, this discussion. Right. So the role of the endocannabinoid system is to keep things in balance, to look for things that's out of balance, and your body makes its own endocannabinoid hormone. Cool. Got a long row of yeses. Very cool. That's right. So your body makes its own endocannabinoid hormone. It doesn't need like a plant to make it work. It has its own hormones that is produced to stimulate, to activate the body and the endocannabinoid system to keep things in balance. So fatty acid amide hydrolase, blocking, regulating, changing shapes of receptors. Very cool. Is the description of how CBD causes that type of effect by regulating, changing the shape receptors and blocking, inhibiting, right? All those different roles that CBD has with the endocannabinoid system. So let me give you a few examples. It's bedtime. I go to bed, and my brain normally tells me it's bedtime, so I start to get sleepy, right? And normally we fall asleep during bedtime. But how many of us here, it's bedtime, we lay in bed, and nothing happens because our brain is still like, it keeps going, right? And how many insomnia issues, right? Many of us have insomnia issues. I have insomnia issues. And we either have problems falling asleep or staying asleep or waking up multiple times. Insomnia is simply a state, right? Insomnia is simply a mental state that is out of balance, having problems sleeping. And when that occurs, the endocannabinoid system notices that, kicks in, and helps you to fall asleep, which is why CBD is often taken to help with insomnia. Does that make sense to you guys? I see a hand raised. You can just simply type in your question. Don't have to raise your hand if you have any questions or comments. Right? So that's an example of the endocannabinoid system working with insomnia. How about anxiety? Right? Anxiety. I know folks take. How many here take or know someone who takes CBD for anxiety or for stress? Anyone specifically? It is a common reason to take CBD for that. Why is that? Why does it work? right? It works because, okay, very cool. It works because anxiety is an emotional state that is out of balance. Okay? Anxiety is an emotional state that's out of balance. An emotional state that's in balance is a state of calmness, right? That's a state that's in balance. And when we go either way, stress and anxiety up here, depression down here, right? These are emotional states that are out of balance. And folks take CBD for anxiety because it activates and promotes the endocannabinoid system to work and to bring that anxiety state back into a state of balance to treat anxiety. Okay. Let me see what else. How many of you guys here are runners or joggers, either now or in the past? Anyone? Anyone here track, cross country? I'm looking at the chat box here. Okay, so we're out of shape. All right, got it. So, okay, got it. I see a definitely me answer here. Very cool. Right? If you've ever done some running, especially long distance running, uh, okay, way in the past, spin class. Okay, that's kind of running in one position, spin, I guess. Um, so if you ever run in the past, right? Usually, if you're doing long distance, you start to run, and then what happens is your body starts to heat up, right? And as you keep running, at some point you get like super tired, and your body's aching, and your joints are aching, and your muscles are aching. But what you do is you push through it, and when you push through it, you get what's called a runner's high, right? Kind of like that second win. And all of a sudden, you have this boost of energy, and it makes you just keep running. How many of you guys have heard of the runner's high or the second win? Type in yes or no if you've either experienced it or you've heard about it. The runner's high, right? Getting that second win when you're doing long distance and you just kind of keep going, just kind of like what's his name that keeps running around the globe? What is his name? That movie, Candace, I
Forrest Gump.
forgot. Yes, Forrest Gump, right?
Mhm.
Yep, my memory's bad. I need to give an Alzheimer's lecture sometime. Right? So, and so let me explain the science behind that. You start running, Forrest Gump starts running. Your body heats up, right? And in heating up, right, the muscles, the joints, the entire body heats up. And as it heats up, it creates your internal inflammation, right? Lactic acid is produced. You get tired, you get achy. The endocannabinoid system detects that your body is now inflamed and heated. And when it detects that, guess what? It activates to bring that inflammation down from the running. And that activation of the endocannabinoid system to bring your body back into balance as you're running, that activation is called the second your second win, right? A runner's high. That's what it is. It was the endocannabinoid system all along, guys, all along. Okay, we just never realized that, but that's what's behind the runner's high. Now, one of the most common uses of cannabis or CBD is for pain, right? One of the most common uses is for pain. Why does it work for pain? It works for pain because pain is driven by inflammation. Arthritis is driven by inflammation, right? Back pain, joint pain, knee pain, right? Inflammation drives pain. The cannabis plant, right? The plant, CBD, THC, activates the endocannabinoid system, and the endocannabinoid system recognizes that inflammation is a system that's out of balance. And so it activates to drive down the inflammation in your body, which brings down pain. Okay, again, it's all driven by the endocannabinoid system. Anything that is out of balance, including inflammation. Did you know that inflammation is a driver for cancer? Cancer thrives in inflammation states. Did you realize that, guys? Cancer thrives in inflammation states. Okay? And here's another thing that you should know and I'm painting a picture for you, because once you understand the picture, you will automatically connect how cannabis may play a role in cancer, right? You automatically connect, because it makes no sense to show you a bunch of slides with scientific blah blah blah. I want you to understand the why it works behind the scenes, and that's what I'm going to spend my time before I show you some blah 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 slides, right? So I'm going to teach you a little bit about the cell cycle. The cell cycle. The cell cycle means, okay, Liz says, is inflammation important to show the body there's a problem? And could CBD be blocking and hiding symptoms? Good point. Bottom line is inflammation a good thing or a bad thing? So the answer to that is inflammation short term is not a bad thing. You have the flu, you get a fever. A fever is inflammation. That's all it is, right? Your body heats up, right? You catch COVID, you have a fever. Simply inflammation, your body tells you got COVID, right? That's inflammation. Short term, not a problem. Your body's trying to defend itself. Inflammation is created short term. What is bad, though, is if you had this fever every day of the month. And so when you have a fever, when you have inflammation that occurs on a regular basis, on a daily basis, and that inflammation becomes chronic, that's when inflammation is actually harmful. It's like going to battle, going to war, and you're trying to shoot the bad guys and you're accidentally shooting the good guys. And so you have collateral damage, right? Friendly fire. So chronic inflammation hurts the body itself. So that's what's bad. And chronic inflammation is the driver of chronic disease, including cancer, right? Including cancer with that. Now, the cell cycle. Why is it important to know what the cell cycle is and how is it related to cancer? Every cell in our body, right? Every cell in our body has a time of birth and a time of death, right? Every cell in our body has a designated time of birth and a time of death. And that's kind of driven by your genes, right? Your genetic code actually have a kill switch that when it's time to die, that gene turns on and the cell dies, right? It's kind of like a kill switch that's in your genetic code of every cell in your body. And the reason for that is this. You're always making new cells. If your old cells don't die and you keep making new cells, what does that look like? Right? I don't know. Do you become like a giant that, just keeps growing because because your cells don't die, you keep making new cells, right? It doesn't make sense. Every cell has a birth date and a death date. Do you know how long a skin cell live? Right? The cells on your skin, do you know how long that the lifespan of a skin cell is? Anyone know? Any guesses? Does it live for hours? Does it live for days, for weeks before it dies? Any thoughts on that? Ooh, okay. I got a comment here. They live for 1 day. Only 1 day? Hold on. Let's Google it. How long does a skin cell live? Cell live. Here you go. Boop, boop, boop. Skin cells live for about 2 weeks. Yeah, for around 1 to 2 weeks is how long a skin cell live. Okay, not very long. How do you know that? We know it because we shed, right? Like if you scratching your skin, you'll have stuff coming off, right? Dandruff is a basic example of skin cells dying, right? Skin cells shedding. With that, here, do you want some examples? I'm just kidding, but but anyway, my wife's looking at me like you're crazy. um, so dandruff, right, or skin cells just kind of shedding, and it sheds because you need new skin cells to replace the dead ones, right? We need new. It's like why we do facials. We do facials because we're getting rid of the old cells so that new cells can grow and things of that sort. Your liver cells have a time span of how long it lives. Your heart cells, your stomach cells, every cell in your body has a time span of how long it lives. In a matter of 1 year, in a matter of 1 year, did you know that you are no longer you in a year? Yeah, every cell's been pretty much completely replaced, except for maybe your brain cells, right? But most of your cells in your body has been completely replaced. It's like you're a new creation every year. If you don't like yourself this year, next year you're somebody new. Every cell's new, right? And and there needs to be a good balance because when there's imbalance between the creation of new cells and the destruction of old cells, right? A controlled destruction of all cells. When there's an imbalance between that creation and destruction of your cells, we get into problems like the yin and yang issue, right? Like the yin and yang issue. And let me see. So that's why people say Happy New Year to me. Yes, that's exactly why, Manuel. People say Happy New Year to you because you are new every year, right? You are new every year with that. And we are all new. And I like that. I'm going to use that for my next lecture. Happy New Year. You are you're like the new you. Um, so where was I? Let me give you examples of why we get into trouble when there's an imbalance. Osteoporosis is an imbalance between the creation of bone cells and the removal of bone cells. Isn't that true? Osteoporosis is what, guys? It's when your bones get thin. Why does it get thin? It gets thin because your bone cells are dying at a faster rate than new bone cells can be formed. That's called osteoporosis, right? That's an imbalance of the cellular cycle of the bones, right? Of the cellular cycle of the bones. Um, when we get older, our skin gets what? Thinner or thicker? Anyone know? When we get older, does our skin get thinner or thicker? Our skin generally gets thinner when we get older. Why is that? Yes, exactly. That's why you get bruises, right? More easily when you're older. And then your skin starts to wrinkle up and things of that sort, right? It's because of the imbalance between making new, fresh skin versus the destruction of old skin. And it affects the thinness or the thickness of the skin. That's imbalance, right? Again, imbalance of the cellular cycle. Cancer. Cancer is simply a cell unwilling to die when it should. Think about that, guys. Why do we have cancer? Cancer is simply a cell that is unwilling to die when it should, right? Breast cancer. How do we detect breast cancer? Well, there's a mass in the breast. When you biopsy it, it's a bunch of breast cells that keeps growing because the cells are unwilling to die. That's why you get a mass that keeps growing, right? You have new cells, but the old cells won't die. So you have a mass that develops. Lung cancer, right? Lung cancer is detected with a mass in your lung. And basically, it's lung cells that are not willing to die when it should. An abnormality of the cell cycle. Cancer. Leukemia. Leukemia is when your white blood cell count is like way, way high. Why is that? It's because the white blood cells that are there, they're not willing to die. So you keep making more and more and more white blood cell counts. And so when you check your blood, your white blood cell counts in the thousands and millions. It's simply a breakdown of the cell cycle. Does that make sense to you guys so far? Type in yes if it does. Type in yes if it does, if that makes sense. Yeah, it's kind of like an overload. It's kind of overload of making more inventory and not removing the existing inventory in a warehouse, right? The cellular cycle. Now, I want you to take all that information and bring it back to the endocannabinoid system. The role of the endocannabinoid system is to detect what is out of balance and to bring it back into balance, right? Cancer is basically cellular cycles that is out of balance. Production exceeds destruction. Production of new cells exceed destructions of old existing cell. The old cells are unwilling to die, right? That kill switch in every cell, right? In cancer, that kill switch is like cut off. So there's no kill switch. The cell never dies, right? And so if you understand that concept of how the endocannabinoid system interacts with your cellular system, interacts with inflammation, which is a state that's out of balance, and that state of inflammation drives cancer. Cancer drives and thrives and lives in inflammation, right? Cancer occurs when the cells do not destroy itself, right? The process of cellular destruction is called autophagy. Autophagy. I'm going to type it out for you guys. All right, autophagy. Does cancer also have to do with the rate of new cell formation? Yes, cancer cells grow at a fast rate. And it grows at a faster rate when there is cancer food, when there's food feeding the cancer. Do you know what type of food feeds cancer? Anyone know? Cancer needs a lot of energy to grow. What is that energy source, guys? What is that energy source that drives cancer? Yeah, that's right. That is right. Yes, sugar, glucose. Glucose is the energy source that drives cancer. The cancer cell is different than a normal cell. And I'll tell you what the differences are between a cancer cell and a normal cell. Every cell has a battery pack in it that makes energy. That battery pack is called a mitochondria. Have you guys heard of that? Mitochondria is the battery pack that gives the energy for the cell to do its work, right? It's an organelle. In cancer, the mitochondria is defective. It's defective. What that means is that the battery pack doesn't make energy efficiently. It doesn't make energy efficiently. Okay. And so, because a cancer cell is a defective cell, and it's defective because its mitochondria is broken, it doesn't make energy well. To make up for that, to make up for the inefficient battery, it needs even more sugar to come in than a normal cell to drive it to grow and expand and multiply. Okay? So a cancer cell is a sugar hog compared to a normal cell. It's a sugar hog. The problem in America and the reason why cancer is the #2 cause of death in the United States is because Americans love to feed cancer with our diet. Right? And I'm not talking about, the obvious cakes, cookies, ice cream, other good desserts, right? I'm not talking about the obvious. I'm really talking about carbs, pasta, bread, white rice, right? Spaghetti, pizza, all the carbs, right? The simple carbs that break down into sugar, and that sugar feeds cancer. So if you want to know why cancer is #2 cause of death, it's because we feed it in America. Okay? That's a little lifestyle, tip for you for cancer minimization and prevention with that. It needs sugar and we feed it. So a cancer cell is a cell, again, that is defective. It has a broken battery pack called a mitochondria. And normally, when there are things that are broken inside the cancer cell, right, inside a cell, when there are things broken, the cell repairs itself all the time. And in the repair process, it looks around and says, oh, that part is broken. I'm going to eat it up, okay, so that I can make a new one. Oh, that part in the cell is broken. I'm going to go and eat it up, and so that I can make a new one. I'll digest the defective parts of the cell. That is called autophagy, okay, autophagy. What you should know is that the endocannabinoid system, when it is working well, it promotes autophagy. Right? One of the roles of the endocannabinoid system is to promote autophagy, and it promotes autophagy by allowing your cells to eat up anything that's defective, including a cancer cell. Okay? And that's how it creates balance, actually. When we talk about the balance of between yin and yang, whenever there's something abnormal or out of balance, it's because it's broken. And in that brokenness, to repair it, you need autophagy. You need the process of autophagy to go in, eat up the broken parts, eat up the defective cells, eat up the cells that are mutated, right? Mutations in cells, so that your body can kind of self-clean itself. Okay? The endocannabinoid system promotes autophagy. The endocannabinoid system promotes the balance of the cellular cycle when it's off balance. And cancer is an off balance of the cellular cycle, right? The endocannabinoid system suppresses inflammation because inflammation is a state that's out of balance. Okay? And inflammation feeds cancer. Cancer thrives through that. So when you have an endocannabinoid system that works well, or that is being activated and stimulated, then you get health. You get better health, including the minimization of possibly cancer when the endocannabinoid system works. Why even talk about the endocannabinoid system? Well, it's because the cannabis stimulates, activates, and interacts with the system. Okay, by understanding the system, you totally will understand why cannabis plays a role. Yes, autophagy, does it refer to recycling both organelles and the entire cells? Yes, it does. It refers to both. It recycles the organelles, but when enough organelles are eaten up, the whole cell kind of gets gobbled up. And the whole cell needs to get gobbled up because you need new cells to form. You need room for new cells to form. Cancer is when those cells are unwilling to die. Okay? But by optimizing the endocannabinoid system, you optimize autophagy. What are some ways to optimize the endocannabinoid system? Well, the plant, right? The plant binds to it, right? Indirectly or directly. It stimulates it, it inhibits it, it activates to promote the function of the endocannabinoid system. Now, having said that, we can't make any claims that, taking weed is going to cure your cancer. Why can't we make those claims? The clinical trials haven't been done. Right? You got to do the research. You got to do the double-blinded clinical trials, right? Cannabis on one side, on one group, the placebo group on the other side, and you got to document that and do the studies to make any claims, right? And the studies are early, and because they're not done, they're not completed. They haven't gone through phase 2, phase 3 to the FDA. You can't make those claims, but you can kind of see the science behind it, can't you? Can you guys kind of see the science behind that outside of making any claims of why that works, right? Anyone heard of Rick Simpson oil? RSO, right? RSO has been known for what? What types of treatments? I guess people take it for cancer, I think, right? People take RSO for cancer. And so there's a lot of testimonies, there's anecdotal YouTube videos and all that, and there's a lot of testimonies. We just can't make a claim without the actual studies. Now, but here's the cool things, guys. Here's the cool thing. There are studies ongoing now. There is a study of cannabis and brain cancer. Active. Yep. The brain cancer being evaluated is glioblastoma multiforme, the most common type, the most deadly type of cancer for the brain, with a lifespan of about maybe 2 years, and then you're dead. We are studying that. That's cannabis is being studied now. Okay. Research showing the causes of apoptosis. Yes, there is. RSO equals RECO. Rennie says that's how I'm treating mine. All right. You guys want to see some slides? Let me pull some slides. Because you understand the slides better when you understand the science behind it, right? Which is why I had to spend the time to explain the science. And once you understand the story behind the endocannabinoid system, and you understand the cell cycle, and you understand autophagy and inflammation, then you understand the study. Everything else is just, just makes common sense with that. This is a graph of how, and this is in Cancer Medicine Journal, a graph of how THC and CBD, right? It binds to your cells, it gets into your system, and you see the word autophagy here. There you go. Promotes autophagy, right? Apoptosis is the death of cells, of old cells, right? This is the science, guys, behind how the plant works. between the receptors here. You got CB1, CB2, you got the receptors for CBD, and how it activates autophagy. So this is the evidence, right? This is the evidence of activating autophagy. And by activating autophagy, it promotes healthy cellular death. That's healthy, right? Here it is there. Apoptosis is cellular death. CBD induces cell cycle arrest, meaning induces cell death, and cell apoptosis in gastric cancer. Gastric cancer is stomach cancer. This is in the Journal of Biomolecules, 2019. Here's another one. CBD induce apoptosis. Apoptosis, again, is cellular death. And it tells you how it's induced through the activation of nausea in human colon cancer cells. Colon cancer. This is published, right? 2019. Our results strongly suggest for the first time that CBD can cause nausea-induced cell death, meaning cell death of these cancer cells. Okay, 2019. Here's another one. I did a whole bunch of 2019 articles for you guys. I didn't do 2020 because I was just too busy with the pandemic last year. So I just looked up some old stuff. Cannabis flavonoid derivative demonstrates therapeutic potential in the model of metastatic pancreatic cancer, guys. This is from, let me see, look down here, Harvard Medical School. Harvard Medical School, right? Cannabis and pancreatic cancer. Now you understand why, right? You understand why these articles exist. Opportunities for cannabis in supportive care cancer. Another article here, 2019. Let's see, anti-cancer effects of cannabinoid and CBD in these cell lines these are cancer cell lines, guys. Here's another one, 2019, comprehensive review of cannabis in patients with cancer, efficacy and safety. So lots of articles, guys, on this. This is an interesting one. This is in lung cancer. And this shows that these are CT scans, CAT scans, between July and November, showing lung cancer patients' tumor had shrank within 3 months of them taking daily drops of cannabis derived oil. This is probably tinctures under the tongue or something. But here is the tumor. You see that little white spot right here that I'm circling in July. And here it is in November, how that white spot is much smaller. And that's from taking cannabis there. This is just a case study that's published. Cannabis to treat cancer, Israeli scientists think so. Israel does a lot of clinical studies on cannabis. They're way ahead of us. Journal of Clinical Oncology, Medical Cannabis in Cancer Patients. And this is to show you that there are studies being done, studies being published on all types of cancer using cannabis and CBD with that emerging role of cannabinoids, synthetic cannabinoid receptors for cancer treatment, chemotherapy associated cancer management. That's in India. Impact of medical cannabis on patient-reported symptoms. This is to treat the symptoms of having cancer, such as nausea, vomiting, weight loss, appetite. And the impact is positive, basically, is what they're saying. This is the first clinical trial, guys, to world first trial to treat brain cancer, 2018. There's the brain cancer using cannabis oil. So it's being studied. Check this out, guys. Harvard University. Cannabis cuts tumor growth in half in 3 weeks. Isn't that crazy? This comes from Harvard. Um, Now you know the reason and the science. Now you know the reason and the science behind all the literature I just showed you, haven't you? Right? Um,
I love it. I feel like it's a science high school refresher. You know, a lot of us forget about like these cell cycles, and the way you explain it just really ties it in. It kind of makes it sense. I know a couple of the comments, people had the emoji of like a head exploding, like, oh my God, like I just figured it out. So insightful. Someone
yeah,
had a question too here. Is THC or CBD, is one more effective than the other to induce apoptosis?
they both do it. The studies have shown that they both induce apoptosis. They both help with the cellular cycle. Whether indirectly or directly, they both enhance the function of the endocannabinoid system.
Mhm.
And by doing that, the system activates and enhances balance in our body.
That's great.
Um, there's a question: can we use 2019 research as evidence to promote cannabis around in our area? This is research that's early. You cannot make any claims of that this is going to cure this cancer or that cancer. It requires clinical trials to actually do that. But you can see the direction we're going, can't you?
How long does it usually take a clinical trial to work through like phase 1, 2, through the FDA? How long is that typically?
between between some scientists, between some mad scientists thinking about it in their brain, to FDA approval of a medication is 10 to 12 years.
Wow. And so
Yeah,
how far is this brain cancer study? Is it, you said the first couple of years?
early. It's in the early phases. And it needs to actually it needs to like be successful in each phase before it goes down, before it moves to the next phase. There's the preclinical phase, which is where we test products in animals like rats and mouse and monkeys, and and if it looks successful in the animals, then we bring it over to human clinical trials.
Mhm.
In the human clinical trials, we go through 3 phases: phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 before it hits the FDA. Phase 1 is to mainly look for safety,
Okay.
right? Is there any, is this safe? Is anyone going to drop dead from this? Is anyone going to grow a tail or a third eye? Right? That's phase 1. Phase 1 is basically, is anything major going to happen? If it looks like it's safe, relatively safe through phase 1, then we move it over to phase 2. Phase 2 is when you bring it on to a larger group of patients, right? Of volunteers, right? Of subjects who volunteer in phase 2. And phase 2 is where we test the different dosing, right? So is CBD going to work better at 10 milligram, 100 milligram, or 1,000 milligram, right? And so we look at the various dosing arms in phase 2 to see what dose works the best. And we
Okay.
also look for safety through phase 2. Is it safe? Is there any side effects? We always continue to look for safety. And so phase 2 kind of fine tunes it into dosing. And then whatever information we find in phase 2 that works, we bring it to phase 3. And in phase 3 is when we bring on hundreds and thousands of patients, right, that are participating in these clinical trials. And if it works, if it doesn't work at either phase 1, phase 2, or phase 3, then it dies, right? The medicine just kind of dies there, and it doesn't go on. But if it passes phase 1, 2, and phase 3, and it's successful and it's relatively safe without severe side effects, then you take it to the FDA and ask them for approval. That's kind of how it works. It's about a 10-year process typically, uh, is what we look at.
That's really interesting. I have so many notes that I've been taking. You shared so many things. I feel like I had like a mini primer in medical school. You like a brief, overview of some of these things. Oh, it's just so interesting. I know that you mentioned, some of the lifestyle choices that we can make to reduce our cancer risk would include like our diet to
Yes,
lower the levels of sugars and carbs and such, which, that's one of my things I need to work on. But is there any other lifestyle choices that you can think of that people can incorporate to help lower their risk?
definitely. Nutrition plays a huge role. Uh, anything that promotes inflammation, promotes cancer. So there are basically a lifestyle that minimizes your risk for inflammation, right? There's food and diets that minimizes your risk for inflammation. Actually, if you want a list of 13 anti-inflammatory foods, just shoot me an email. Right? I'll send you a list of like 13 anti-inflammatory foods. And let me see. I'll give you my email here. Hold on.
And then would it also like include like exercise, sleeping well, like reducing
Yes,
stress, like all those sorts of things as well?
yes, totally. Exercise, sleeping, stress reduction, um, all those different things, including nutrition and diet, plays a role. I'll send you that list of foods, and what I can do is I can probably put this video onto my homepage as well for people to watch later as well. Um, if you guys are, yeah, you can email it out, and I'll put it onto my health talks page.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's my health talks page that you guys can check out. It's just healthtalksoc.com. And I'll link the video once it's ready on there, and we'll get some traffic to that.
Perfect.
Um,
Well, this has been really informative. I always love working with you. It's so great. I loved working on the Physician CBD Council. I can't wait to see us doing more things with that in the future. And like you talked about before, I always say this if people watch my webinars, I can't wait till we get to the point where all the research and the studies have finally get published and released. And I think by that time, we'll be able to even test our own systems and see like where our deficiencies are and like what endocannabinoids at what amounts we'll need. So I feel like this is all going to kind of culminate at the same time, like maybe 10 years from now. And, we'll be like, oh, we never would imagine 10 years ago that we would have this broken down like a science, and make it so much easier for people to understand and have success with.
100%. 10 years ago, it was just all about the
brownies and weed was all we had. We didn't
brownies, weeds, getting high, and smoking dope. I don't know. Now we got science behind all. Now we got all science behind all that.
Yeah, and then wait for 10 more years. Like I said, it's going to be like life changing, and we'll be like, why didn't we do this so many years earlier? And of course, that's because prohibition has not allowed us to do this kind of testing that we need. But finally, we're getting to that point where, the scientists and the researchers are unlocking the potential of cannabis.
Yes, we need to free the plant from jail, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We need to free the plant from jail.
Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today for this episode of the Pharmacy Cannabis Lecture Series. Thank you, obviously, to our wonderful guest, Dr. Trinh, and then also to the whole Physician CBD Council, other doctors in Orange County who also support CBD education and outreach to doctors to educate them so they can pass this information on to their patients as well. I hope that we were able to share some information with all of you that will help you become better informed cannabis consumers, and that the information that we provided will help you find relief. Thank you again. And until then, stay well, stay safe, and definitely follow Dr. Trinh and his health talks. And we'll have more amazing information for you guys to come.
Take care, guys.